Welcome to Erratic Sleep Patterns, guys.
So the movie that I'm going to talk about today is called Creep. It's from 2014. It's supposed to be like a horror movie, maybe closer to a thriller. Either way, not that effective. So if you haven't seen it, the problem I have with this movie is that the premise is so good, and it could have been a good to great movie if it had been done differently. So before I get into that part, let's talk about what the movie is about. So the idea is that this guy is like, hey, I need you to videotape me for a day, and says it's because, he's dying of cancer and he wants the video for his son. Then turns out maybe he's not what he seems or whatever. It's not carried out well enough, though. I mean, you know immediately that something's not right. So let's talk about the big failings of the movie. First, it relies on jump scares, and they're really predictable. I watched this for the second time to do this in the bath while shaving, knowing full well that there was nothing that was going to make me jump even a little bit. I'm easily startled, so honestly, if you can't get me on a jump scare, you're clearly doing it wrong. If you're not making it scary, and especially if you're not making it surprising, then there's no point in doing it. To make a good jump scare, one that's worthy of having, you need tension, and that's not really set up in this movie. Part of the lack of tension is showing your hand right away, right? So the first jump scare is the guy goes out and he's trying, like he's at the location, he's trying to find the guy that he's supposed to meet, knocks on the door, can't find him, can't reach him by phone, right? And he's just sitting in the car like, ugh. And then...
Hi!
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you.
I'm assuming you're Aaron.
The character shows up and slams against the car, and you're like, oh, I'm so scared. Well, obviously, first of all, nothing was happening at that point. Jump scare is going to happen. Second of all, to make that guy be the thing that's scary, it's like not a bat, not a bird, not a rock, right? That guy is now suspicious because we've set him up as the scare, right? So we're already on edge for this guy, because who also goes up to a car like that? The next jump scare is, I think it's the next one, is the mask, right? There, where he goes in the closet and there's a mask. It doesn't fall off the shelf. He just sees it and it's supposed to be scary or whatever. We haven't established this mask to be anything, so it can't be startling or scary. It just exists. I guess it's supposed to be foreshadowing, but I feel like you're basically using Chekhov's gun to shoot you in the foot, right? You're setting up that this is going to come back later and it's going to scare you. Don't worry, we'll get there. Except it never does. I mean, it does come back, doesn't scare you. The characters do things that make no sense. I'm not going to get too much into Mark Duplass's character because people can just be like, well, he's crazy, and excuse stuff away. So I'll let anything in that go. But let's be clear, I can't understand his motivations most of the time. So we go to the guy who got hired, right? He's out there to film this video for this guy he doesn't know. There's no establishing anything like that this guy needs to be there, right? There's no establishing that he needs the money. He gets paid up front anyway, so just run away. So as things get weirder and weirder, and it starts off weird, let's be honest, you don't understand why he's not leaving. At one point, when the guy's sister is calling him on the phone, she's like, just walk away, go outside, walk away from the house. He's crazy, basically, right? And he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? He's got my keys. And she's just like, just walk, go. And he's like, I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense. Who gets that phone call, right? You're already, things are weird, can't find your keys. This guy's an oddball, found the scary mask in the closet, and then you get a phone call from somebody you don't know who basically just like, because it wasn't his phone. He called the other guy's phone that he took out of the pocket, which is another jump scare. He should know, like, this wasn't set up necessarily. And I mean, even if it was, the danger in the house is clearer than the danger outside of the house. So if someone tells you to leave because you're not safe, leave. You're not safe. Why are you staying? So it doesn't make any sense. At one point, because I was thinking this specific situation that is set up in this movie could not have a woman as the second character. I know there's a woman in the second Creep, and I'll talk about why that's a better movie. As a woman, there's so many red flags and so many things that you're already looking out for, that to watch it and have a woman in that role, you'd be like, are you dumb? Is this your first day on Earth? Which made me, for a second, think, are guys this dumb? It's like, oh, I'm a dude, I can take care of myself. But that's not even established in the movie, so I can't even feel like, oh, he thinks he's a tough guy. If they had pre-established that, right, where he was like, I'm not scared of anything, then it would make more sense. But as it is, it's just some nerd guy who, you know, is freaked out and is not paying attention to any of the warning signs and not reacting to any of the obvious signs. So what are you doing? Especially even after he gets out of there and things start escalating and get stranger, and he still makes terrible, terrible, terrible decisions. It makes no sense as a human character. At the last scene where he gets killed, I mean, obviously he's deserving of getting killed. Are you fucking stupid? And I know that they try to do that last monologue part where, you know, he's like, I know why you didn't turn around. It's because you're the best person ever. And as much as I did to you, you still trusted me or some bullshit.
And then I realized why you didn't turn around. It's because you're the greatest person that's ever lived, Aaron.
It doesn't actually explain it away. The reason why it happened is because you wrote a poor movie and now you're trying to fix it. Side tangent. This part isn't necessarily affecting of the movie, but the 911 call, or the call to the police, and I know my history as a dispatcher makes it a little different for me, but this phone call doesn't work as a phone call. What is the other person saying? Dispatch, how can I help you?
Hi. My name is Aaron Franklin. I'm calling to report a violent domestic incident and a stalker.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
Well, I don't know if he's dangerous, but he's really weird and super creepy, and I'm starting to get scared for my safety.
Okay,
His name is Joseph.
What exactly happened?
Or at least I think it is. He lies a lot.
Okay. Do you know his last name?
No, I don't know. I don't know his last name.
Okay, that's
no,
okay.
I don't know where he lives. We met at a cabin. He claimed it was his, but I looked it up and it's just some rental.
Okay, that's okay. All right.
No, I have no way of finding him or contacting him.
Oh, okay,
Well, there must
that's
be
okay.
something you can do. Can't you send someone over to take fingerprints or something? He sent me a heart locket and a knife. You could use those.
Okay, what's your address?
Well, I'm glad you're taking this seriously. You guys have been entirely unhelpful. I'm sure I'll be sleeping soundly tonight.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry. Another thing that's stupid about this movie is he is supposedly in love with wolves, and he can't even say it right.
I love wolves.
Additionally, I don't, like, when he agrees to see him again, and he's like, oh, he's so sad. I don't know any guy with that level of dumb empathy. And I'm not saying that necessarily anyone would with no pre-established relationship. Again, there's ways we could pre-establish this relationship or make it necessary, right? So the monetary reason we could make it necessary, or a Tinder situation, or you know, whatever, a dating site or something, where there's already a connection and like, maybe I misunderstood him, and you know, maybe, you know, if there was already like feelings involved or something. It's a stranger you have no obligation to who's clearly insane. What are you doing? The end of the first one is dumb. Not only because it doesn't make sense that he was like, oh, he's so sad, I should give him another chance, based on nothing. But, so I get that the chainsaw's probably supposed to explain why you can't hear him coming. But he turns around, there's like, not even like a full minute, I don't think, definitely not a full 2 minutes, of him just sitting there. So he had to be somewhere close by. Was he hiding behind a tree? Are you that lacking of situational awareness that, like, when you set up the camera and walked over to the bench, you didn't see him? Or is he super fast? Was he dressed up like another guy? Like, I get that the camera angle is specifically over here, so we don't have to answer those questions, but it still leaves those questions. How long are you willing to wait out there staring straight ahead at a lake, not looking behind you, for a dude that is going to kill you? Doesn't make sense. Plus, the end jump scare is ridiculous.
It's all over.
It's dumb. Now that I've gotten some ranting out of the way, let's talk about how we could make it good. Okay, so to make the first movie work without taking away from the second movie, but potentially setting up for the second movie, I have the following ideas. First of all, Peach Fuzz is a good character. You could use him as an establishing horror idea. This would work for several reasons. One, it adds more tension to the movie. Two, it could later give the man reason to stay even though things seem off, right? Where if you know that there is a psychopath out there and you don't think it's inside, you're more likely to stay inside with a weird situation than go outside for a terrible situation, right? So, if you don't know, sometimes GPS doesn't work. It will take you to places that are incorrect. It'll like short out and you'll be driving for a while and you'll end up somewhere and then GPS is like, oh, you passed it like 10 miles ago, and you turn around and all this stuff. We can use this in a movie situation, right? If you are a psychopath, you might choose to live in a place that you know has bad GPS, right? Or even you can give an incorrect address by just enough that it's an easy mistake, right? So North Sunset versus South Sunset. They could be very far away and not necessarily noticeable that you're in the wrong spot. So as a psychopath, either give the bad address or give the good address in a bad GPS area. Get this guy to go where you know is going to be the wrong spot. That's where you're set up dressed as Peach Fuzz, just like watching, right? And he can be like, oh, what the hell, right? And then, he disappears or whatever. He's like looking around trying to find out where it went. Phone rings. It's you. Hey, buddy, where are you at? Oh, I think I'm there, but I'm not seeing anything. And then he'd be like, oh, sometimes the GPS doesn't work there. Meet me at this diner. You know the area better than he does. So either you can get there faster or you get there later. He doesn't know where you're coming from. So that way, take off your mask, change your outfit, get in the car, meet him at the diner. Be like, oh, sorry, I didn't even think about that. I don't have a lot of visitors out here. It's my summer home, blah, 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 blah. Using that, you have established something creepy outside, not clearly you, and you can use that later in the house, right? Or he could bring it up. He was like, yeah, I saw this guy in a wolf mask. And you could be very concerned and be like, I've heard problems of like a psychopath in the area. Did you tell the police? And then you can even fake your like 911 call and be like, I'm going to tell, like, I've got a buddy who's a cop. I'm going to call him, right? And pretend you're on the phone with, Tim and be like, hey, Tim, I have this guy who came over. This makes you seem safer. It makes it seem like a real emergency. And it takes a lot of the suspicion off you, right? You're faking it. It doesn't matter. But to the audience, to the character, it's not you. When you're at the house later, you can have like sounds, banging. You can act up like, oh my God, did you hear that? That kind of thing to make him more freaked out. He's less likely going to want to leave the house. It's simple. The other thing that we could do in the first movie to make things go a little bit smoother is this. We start out meeting at the diner instead of having the diner later, right? He could still do the what's good thing here to give a little bit of foreshadowing that maybe things he's saying aren't right, but to like so minor that like it's not super obvious. At the diner, he can explain, that he had cancer, it's come back, he's going to die, he wants to do this for his son. He can also tell the story of the healing waters at that point and say that's the first place that he wants to go. The guy's like, probably, with that part established, maybe not sure. We can have, they're in separate cars. He could be talking to the camera, being like, I don't know about this guy. It seems weird. He wants to go out to the woods. So he's like, maybe this isn't such a good idea. They go out there. the foreboding of like, why are we going out into the woods sort of thing. Then it turns out the water, the heart shape, everything, it's there. It builds like a trust. You're like, oh, okay, I totally misread this guy. He's just a little weird. Then when they get to the house, you can have that foreboding up the stairs shot, right? Like, that's fine. That's good. Still a little weird, right? It still makes you maybe a little suspicious, but nothing clear. Then maybe you could do the bath scene. It's weird to start out with the bath scene if you're trying to set a situation where somebody's supposed to be comfortable and safe and, willing to continue on. At any points during this, he could have the backstory of the psychopath in the woods who dresses like the wolf, blah, 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 right? Old wives' tale or something like that. When they're in the bath, he can do the, did you hear that? Thought I heard somebody outside. Establish that it's not him, right? He could feel more comfortable to stay and drink. At that point, maybe then he finds the mask in the closet. That would make it seem scarier. And then the phone call, etc., etc., etc. Even setting that stuff up would help make it a more coherent, spookier movie. The other idea I have for this is that it's already established, or it gets established throughout the movie, that the other guy also makes his own movies. So what he could do is he could pretend, right, like have these movies set up, that he's a prankster. After he dresses up like the wolf and goes to the wrong address like I discussed, he could videotape himself being like, I think I really scared him, this is going to be great, right? And then he can show those videos later. This helps the problem with found footage films that only have like one side. A lot of times you only have one viewpoint. It can add a second viewpoint. It can clear some stuff up and eventually become revealing, right? So if the guy's like freaking out, he could be like, look, man, I'm doing a prank show. This is what I got going on, to reestablish maybe a friendship down the line that would make that guy hang out with him again. There are things you can do to show other sides, to explain what's going on. Once he's safe, thinking he's just friends with a prankster, then you can prank him by killing him.
I jumped out and pranked him to death with a tire iron.
That's it. Establish the creature as somebody else earlier. It can still be you. You can still explain how it was you, using that explanation as means to make you seem like a safer person, to even, like, as a twist, kill him in the end. Reorder the situation so that it follows in a logical pattern of escalation, right? You start out kind of normal and then it slowly devolves, as most crazy people will do. They don't start out crazy. You don't necessarily know that somebody's off until you get to spend more time with them. Have the guy follow logical protocols of humans. Most people have need of self-preservation. Follow that instinct, right? Unless he has reason, something scary outside, needing the money, past relationship with this person. Unless he has reason to go against those instincts, don't have him go against those instincts. It doesn't make any sense. Now, here's the part for Creep 2. Creep 2 is a better movie. I actually like Creep 2, which is why I don't fully hate Creep, because it sets up for Creep 2. I like the idea that he feels like he's lost his mojo and is looking to get it back. I also think the female character in this makes more sense. First of all, he doesn't act as suspiciously the second time around. Like, he does some weird things, but not as obviously suspicious. On top of that, she's already established as a vlogger, so like the filming thing isn't that weird for her. She's already established as somebody who has encounters with people and in weird situations, right? So somebody being weird isn't going to throw her off, and she feels like she's failing, so she would be motivated to do things that aren't safe, right? To ignore those indicators that she might be in danger, because she wants that shot. She wants to push it so that she gets something entertaining, something that pulls people in.
I have no idea what I'm stepping into.
And I mean, we've already established a lot of people will do things that are maybe dangerous or tasteless to get the views.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
He starts out honest, which is smart because, right, like, you might think it's a mistake to be like, oh, I'm a serial killer. But she's used to meeting weirdos and exploring their oddities. And if somebody flat out tells you that they're a killer, it doesn't feel like they're a killer, right? It feels like maybe they're having fantasies, right? it should put you a little on guard that you might get murdered. I would be hard-pressed to necessarily believe somebody telling me that they're a murderer. I think it was a mistake for him to show her that video of murder so soon. I think that, because he's tells it to her, she doesn't believe he's a murderer, which makes sense if she hasn't seen the video. Most of what follows would make sense if she hadn't seen him murder somebody. So that, I get that the video can be faked or whatever, but unless we use the prankster angle from the first thing, maybe she knows him as a prankster online or something like that.
What am I doing trying to make the films that I used to make? What if I make a documentary?
She has no reason to believe that that video is anything else. So it would also help the story if she hadn't seen it, but then when she's like, no, I don't believe you're a killer or whatever, and then he's like, well, watch this, and then maybe she starts freaking out a little bit. Granted, you might think that I think she's a better character because she's cosplaying as me. She's got purple hair, black sweatshirt, choker, heart locket at one point, knife in her boot. These are all classic Amy things. So maybe that's why I identify with this a little bit better. But overall, I think it flows better. It might seem to me as a better movie than it is because I'm always comparing it to the first one. So I know that there are some plot issues, some character flaws that I'm not a huge fan of. But overall, I would say this movie is way better, more thought out. I mean, they do have jump scares. The jump scares are a little bit more effective. They're a little bit more fun. It has a twist that you don't even really have to explain necessarily because it cuts out and then it cuts back later. So anything could have happened in that time. We don't have to know. We could put our own story into how it got from point B to point C. So anyway, that's how I would rewrite Creep. It could be a good idea. I mean, it sounds like an easy horror, but they seem to have just done everything wrong.
Wow, you're a tough nut to crack.
They do it better in Creep 2, kind of redeem it a little bit, which, makes it worth seeing the first one, I guess. But it's so disappointing for what it could have been with just some really simple, just logical thought. Anyway, dogs are barking downstairs, so I'm going to end it here. Have a good day.
Thanks for watching.